pues, de la dictadura, del régimen dictatorial a la democracia. Para el día de hoy el moderador va a ser el profesor Carlos Ayala Corao y este evento del aula del día de hoy está especialmente coauspiciado por la Universidad Católica Andrés Bello y la Academia de Ciencias Políticas y Sociales, además, por supuesto, del Bloque Constitucional y Universitas Fundación. Yo simplemente darles la bienvenida y decirles que la conferencia va a ser totalmente en inglés y el profesor Carlos Ayala Corao ha amablemente accedido a hacer la moderación también en idioma inglés para facilitar el evento, la comunicación del evento. Contamos con la traducción simultánea de también un voluntario a quien agradecemos su colaboración, el abogado Gabriel Ortiz, de manera que si usted quiere oír la conferencia en español, por favor vaya en el Zoom, donde dice interpretación o lenguaje, y ahí va a ver que tiene la opción Spanish. Si usted le da a la opción Spanish, usted va a oír la conferencia totalmente en español y la moderación en español a través de la traducción simultánea que va a hacer Gabriel Ortiz. Si lo deja en original, solo va a poder oír la conferencia en inglés. Y finalmente decir que si quieren hacer cualquier comentario o pregunta, por favor lo hacen por la vía ordinaria, que es en el chat, tanto del Zoom como en el chat de YouTube. Ustedes pueden dejar sus comentarios y preguntas y el profesor Carlos Ayala pues las transmitirá a la ponente. Sin más, profesor Carlos Ayala, le cedo la moderación del evento.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Maria Amparo. Welcome everybody to this event where Judge Radmila Dragicevic-Dicic is going to be with us on the topic of transitions and the role of the judiciary and the transitions from autocratic regimes to democracy. Radmila is a good friend and a long-standing colleague in the role as vice president with me of the International Commission of Jurists. We have been there in different programs around the world. She has even been in visits and events in Latin America with judges from Central America and Guatemala and elsewhere. She's been a judge of the Supreme Court of Serbia since 2013, and she started her career in 1980 working as a clerk of a municipal court in Belgrade. In 88, she was elected judge of that court, and in 94, she was elected for the District Court of Belgrade, where she presided over a number of important criminal cases. Later, in 1997, during the regime of Slobodan Milosevic, Judge Dicic was one of a number of important judges that established the Association of Judges of Serbia. Judges, I may add, for democracy. So the main goal of this association were to improve the judicial system as to promote the independence of judges and to resist violation by the executive power of the basic constitutional principles and international legal standards. She, as the other members of this association, were, of course, as expected, subject to increased pressure by the authorities and were harassed. In early 2000, the National Assembly of Serbia dismissed 15 judges, including Judge Dicic, until the fall of the autocratic regime, the Milosevic regime, when she worked as a lawyer and consultant for various NGOs, including the Helsinki Committee of Human Rights in Serbia, and the Humanitarian Law Center in Belgrade, Center for Human Rights. After the elections of 2000, the Parliament of Serbia annulled the decision to dismiss the 15 judges, and Radmila retook her position in the Belgian District Court And in May 2003, she was assigned to the Special Chamber for Organized Crime in the District Court. And then in that position, she became a prominent sitting in many high-profile cases, both as a member of that panel and its chairman. I think it's very important for us in Venezuela and other Latin American countries, and I would say elsewhere in the world, to listen to the experience of Serbia. What was the role of judges during the autocratic regime, and what was the role of the judges during a transition? I think it will be worthwhile listening to the Serbia experience and make our own reflections how that could happen elsewhere. So, Radmila, thank you very much for this participation and for your commitment for the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. And I'm very delighted to welcome you to this event in Venezuela, where you will have the opportunity to share with us your biography as a judge, as a person, as a human rights defender. So the floor is yours, and thank you very much again, Radmila.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you for organizing this event, for letting me to speak to the judges of dear country Venezuela and maybe a little wider. And I think talking to lawyers, professors, judges in the countries with problems like you are having, with the dictatorships, with the regimes, obstructions of justice, it is very important, as it was for me and my colleagues and our own experience, to get the chance to meet with the judges of the other countries, to hear their experience, and really to get the feeling how does the justice function. Because when you live in the country, as we did at one period of the time, that is under isolation, that is under dictatorship, under the sanctions, then you really lose the contact with the world, you lose the sense, you are just blocked. And that is some other issue that I would like to talk at the end, the issue about international community treating our countries that get in such troubles. I will, as Carlos gave my biography as a judge, I will tell you that I'm judge of the career. I started in the court, and it's somehow in my veins, and criminal law, especially, and being a criminal judge, I really could witness all the heavy crime rising in the country as long as the regime was rising, this connection between organized criminal group and the state and executive power. So that was really organized state crime that we, after that so-called revolution, faced to fight it, and it caused our first elected prime minister, Dr. Zoran Đinđić. He was assassinated by the same organized criminal group, but then we continued. And for the beginning, I just want to tell you that I don't forget that at the end, the fight for the independence of the judiciary, believe me, it's never ending fight. And I find myself 30 last years fighting for the same issue. Governments are changing. We get democratic government, then we get another government, which is less democratic, more national, but they all somehow are trying to achieve to overrule judiciary. And that's something that we always have on mind, and it is something that we watch and fight through mainly through the Association of Judges and through the prominent judges that luckily we still have in the country. Am I talking too fast? Gabriel, it's okay? Okay. Just to picture the situation in my country, which maybe can be compared, and maybe not with Venezuela, but there are some things to compare. It is that the problems in ex-Yugoslavia, all the colleagues will remember that it was a big, beautiful country. Yugoslavia consisted from 7 republics that fell apart, and at the end, there was a Serbia, there's a Serbia, and then I lived through the change of 3 states. My country changed 3 names, and now it's Republic of Serbia. But anyway, the problem started in 1989, after all the problems we had with the death of ex-president Tito, destruction in the Communist Party that was the leading party in ex-Yugoslavia, and the rise of nationalism in the state, some foreign influence, whatever was there. There are lots of theories, but somehow we witnessed this fight for political power among the states in ex-Yugoslavia. We witnessed the civil war that was really serious. We witnessed the sanctions over Serbia that lasted for 4 years. We witnessed the bombing of Serbia by NATO forces. And so I just, that was really hard period. And during all this period, there was Slobodan Milošević that started to coming on the power in 1989. And finally, he became a president of some parts of ex-Yugoslavia. Then he became the president of Serbia. And during that period, we also witnessed the hyperinflation. That was in 1992, that our salaries were like €3 or something. That was like, I don't know. And the criminal groups were all over the streets. The elections were fake. And judiciary was still just closed in our courtrooms. We were doing our jobs. But as with the rise of criminal organized crime, with the rise of opponent of Slobodan Milošević, we got so-called political cases, and we could witness that executives and politicians, they just did everything to have their own judges. They didn't respect the right to natural judge. The role of the president of the court was very big. The president of the court was like a little god. He was delivering the cases to the certain judges. The main prosecutor was delivering the cases to the certain prosecutor. So there was this chain, police that was under the regime, prosecutor and judge. So that was enough to have 2 judges in one court, 3 judges in big district court in Belgrade. That was the most important court for all those organized crime cases at that time, to solve all the problems. Those cases would always deliver to certain judges and certain prosecutors. So it was a big dilemma, moral and ethical, for me, not only for me, for my colleagues. What are we doing in our courtrooms? Because in my courtroom, there was a justice that was delivered and fair trial. And do I give the people the wrong impression of justice being in action, or because it's in my courtroom, but in the courtroom beside me, there are political trials, people are getting sanctions without proofs, and on the other side, in the other court, the newspapers were sanctioned to the very high money sanctions, so that they were not able to work. So that was really dictatorship on action. But that was not still so harsh for the judges, because that was okay. They had their judges, so they did what they did. But somehow the turning point was in 1996, when we had the local elections. But in meanwhile, the power of Slobodan Milošević was getting down. I mean, he was not so beloved by the citizens. The students were giving some actions. And in those elections in 1996, in all cities, but there were local elections, in all cities in Serbia, opposition won, Democrat Party won. And still we had the Republic, on the Republic level, we had the Socialist Party of Serbia, where Milošević was the leader. But they didn't like it, of course, because that was Belgrade, the capital, big cities, and that was big celebration on the street. So they proclaimed that they wanted the elections. They appealed to the courts, and that was really a serious situation that awoke a majority of judges when they really misused the courts, misused the judges. So they made extraordinary chambers to decide on those appeals on the elections. And they all, in all the cities in Serbia, they all decided in favor of Socialist Party of Slobodan Milosevic. So they proclaimed a victory with the help of judges, with the help of our colleagues. They picked some young judges. They picked the judges that, I don't know, they promised different things later. We could witness, and we had the notes that of all those judges who collaborated in that, they got apartments because there were state apartments were given to judges. They got the credits, very good credits under good conditions. They got other privileges, they got promotion in their career. So that was the time when we really somehow spontaneously, that was really, really spontaneous. A group of us, people that we knew, and my friends, we were really nice, excellent, independent judges. They just couldn't believe it, and they were really ashamed of that. I was ashamed of my children. I was ashamed of the young people of Serbia. So we decided to do something. So we decided to form Association of Judges of Serbia, and we did it. We did make Association of Judges of Serbia, that we did it in Belgrade, but that was for all judges. And in a very short time, from 2,000 judges that we had at that time, more than 600 became the members of the Association of Judges. And we proclaimed our goals. That was independency. We said that the fair trial, that the election was fake, and all together with the citizens of Serbia, some of us, not all, but about 25 of us, the most kind of stubborn, we were together on the streets with the citizens of Serbia and students, and we were marching with them on the street. Those were the big demonstrations all over the Serbia against this steal of the votes. We were asking to return the power on the local level. So those demonstrations were really long. They lasted for more than a month. The people were every day on the street. The students had great performances. I was there. My colleagues were there. We stood in front of police. We just really openly fought. And we knew that at some point they might, whatever, they might dismiss us. They might put us to the jail. They were already in all newspapers that we are enemies of the country, that we are traitors, that we are paid by CIA, all the kind of foreign intelligence services, that we are not patriots, that we are working against our country, and that everybody is against Serbia, that we are under the sanctions because they hate us, they don't like Serbs. And here we are, the judges, the group of judges, that's what they told us, that we are the enemies. But really, there were so many people on the streets, and at some moment, that's for my colleagues from Venezuela and from the other countries of South America or wherever, you feel whether you as a judge have the right to do things like that, to go on the street and protest. Is it dealing with politics? That is forbidden for judges. It's forbidden by Serbian constitution. Judges cannot be the members of a political party. Judges cannot deal with the politics, cannot show those. It's not same everywhere, but that's how it's in Serbia, which is good. And then somehow we really realized that that's what we are doing. It's not dealing with politics. We were not fighting for political power. We were not fighting for some political party. We were fighting for the justice, we were fighting for the division of power, and that some of us, we went to the free media. We still had a few free media. free newspapers that were not really a lot. And we talked, we gave interviews. And at the end, if someone remember, Mr. Gonzalez, I think he's from Spain, he was representing some European body, and he came to Serbia, he negotiated with Milosevic, and somehow they had to admit that they lost elections on the local level. So that was a big victory of citizens, a big victory of all of us. But still, that was only 1997. Still, Milosevic was on power, and still, association was not really favorable. They, like the role of Supreme Court at that time, was against association. The judges of the Supreme Court, they were completely on the side of executives. They forbid association to register. You have to register in the police on the list of non-governmental organizations. They forbid it to us. As the Supreme Court of Serbia even issued the decision, which was really shameful decision, and we have the names of those judges of the Supreme Court, that they forbid judges to associate. They said the judges are civil servants, which is not even in our constitution that we are civil servants, and that we cannot have association. So actually, we were kind of forbidden, and we worked under the association of jurists that was made by some professors of the law university, so that we can have some ways of regularity. So that was the really shameful role of Supreme Court, but at the same time, we had a few outspoken judges of the Supreme Court that were on our side, that they spoke. And I know it's not easy, but it's really important when you fight for the independence of the judiciary, when you fight in the countries that are with regimes like you have, like we had, that is that you have a few prominent judges from the highest court, from the Supreme Court, from the Constitutional Court, that can talk, because people somehow listen to them. When they shut all TVs and whatever, we made tribunes. We went to the cities, we talked, and still we were not dismissed. But we knew that at one point we will be dismissed. And we went to some meetings from city to city, and I always was waiting to be, whatever, arrested or something, and I accepted that. I had 2 children at that time as my colleagues, but we always thought that this is for them. Maybe now when I think about all of it, at some situation, I think maybe we were all a little crazy, but it's okay. And mainly there were women there. Somehow my experience from situations like this is telling me that the women have, I don't know, somehow they have more energy, they are braver, they go with their heart, they don't think too much, while men maybe think more on the secure side. And I don't know, but that's how it was really, that mainly there were women there. Anyway, and then what was also dilemma was whether we shall leave judiciary by ourselves and say, okay, we are leaving it, we don't want to stand it anymore, whatever, or shall we wait to be dismissed? So we decided anonymously in the Association of Judges that we will wait for them to dismiss us illegally, as they did, because that's the way they show their face, they show the side of dictatorship, so they're just more obvious and make things more obvious. And that time we were under the sanctions. I am still talking about 1998, 1999. We were under the sanctions, and those sanctions are, I think, the most horrible international intervention that can be put over some country. maybe they should be some selective sanctions, but when you put the sanctions totally over the country, as it was over the Serbia, we were cut out of cooperation with some NGOs, world NGOs. We were cut with cooperations with the universities. They were forbidden to communicate with our universities. Our hospitals were not getting the medical supplies. Babies were dying, and that was all used for propaganda, as propaganda machinery to the regime of Slobodan Milosevic. And people somehow they hang on it. Because when you shut the people, just patriotism somehow rises and nationalism. I don't know what it is. It's so easy to manipulate the people. Even we, as Association of Judges, Carlos knows that because I mentioned it a few times. I'm now the vice president of International Commission of Juries, but I don't know, at that moment maybe I was the president of Association of Judges of Serbia. We wrote the letter. We asked for the help. We wrote a letter to this Center for Independence of Judiciary, which belongs to the International Commission of Juries. We told them about ourselves. We asked for the reaction or something, and they told us, I know we have that letter. They answered to us, which I still don't understand, that they cannot help us because Serbia is under the sanction. My colleague from Canada, Judge Michelle Rivet, who was also the vice president of ICJ at that time, she was doing some things in Serbia and doing some projects or whatever. And later, when there was sanctions and bombing, she communicated with me, asking the questions of what she can do. And she was invited by her foreign office or whatever. They were asking her they were telling her that she's breaking sanctions towards the Serbia. That's not good. That's not good. And later, when it was so obvious that Milosevic is losing the power last years, just before real revolution, when we threw him on the street, the international community opened a little. We had a meeting. They transferred to some embassies or something. We had transfers to Budapest, where we had the meetings with our colleagues from England, from France, from Germany, and we were getting some meetings really where we were trying to explain us more things on European Convention on Human Rights, on the independence of the judiciary, of how we should set up the new laws when the transition period comes. And all those meetings were really, I don't know, we were going, I remember one meeting, we sat in the bus, like 15 of us, the headquarters of Association of Judges, we were going to the Budapest, and I thought, my God, they will arrest us all now on the board or something, because they knew what we were doing, they knew all of our moves, but hopefully it didn't happen. That is something which I think differs maybe Venezuela from Serbia, that there were not so rude oppression, and I was never really afraid for my life at that time, though there was one judge that died under unknown circumstances during the period of that revolutionary day of 5th October in 2000, when we were all on the street, wanted to throw Milosevic after one try that he steals the votes again as a president. And this judge, he was investigative judge, he didn't want to bring the arrest order for some minors in the minor close to Belgrade, because they all stood up and they all kind of wanted to come to Belgrade. They organized themselves because the people were coming from all the cities to Belgrade. And he got the order from executives to arrest them all, to give the order to police to arrest, because the police couldn't arrest them. That's happy they didn't arrest without order an investigative judge, and he didn't do it. And somehow, a few days later, he was found drowned in the river. Sava that goes to Belgrade, and still there's a mystery about his death, and we still all have the doubts how it happened. So it was, we sacrificed a lot at that time, and I don't know, we sacrificed our careers, our financial status, we sacrificed, I don't know, it was just, we had kids, and that was always fight. So as the time was going, by 2000, at the beginning of 2000, they decided to dismiss us. First, they dismissed 4 judges, 1 judge of the Supreme Court of Serbia, 1 judge of the Constitutional Court of Serbia, and 1 other judge, 3rd judge, because they were saying that they are politicians, that they are dealing with politics, that it's not allowed. So they dismissed them in the Parliament of Serbia. So we all stood up, wrote the letters. I wrote the letters. I was talking around. My colleagues were talking. We were signing the petitions for them. And then finally, they dismissed 20 more judges, among whom was me too. And so we just stayed without our job, without regular payments, which was at that time that was really important. But we were all ready for that. And what was happening from the regime during this period before our dismissal is that they were trying really to break the backbones of the judges, to act, to put the fear among them. They were called, like the president of the court, they would call the judges under the directive of the Minister of Justice, and they would tell them that if they don't subscribe them from the Association of Judges, they will be dismissed from the judicial position. And you have to understand, as you understand, that people have families, they're feeding, whatever. And some of them, like in one city, 30 of them said, okay, we will leave Association of Judges. But in the other city of Niš, which was kind of one of the biggest cities in Serbia, judges said, no, we won't. It's our right. Dismiss us all. Which is, those are really delicate issues. And when I think psychologically, philosophically, and psychologically about all of it, that's such a great heaviness, burden on judges during this period. Because I always talk like that and talk among judges because we are not all the same. All the judges are not the same. Human beings not the same. They don't have the same structure, emotional, physical, sociological. Some of them are more outspoken. Some are a little more crazy. Some are braver. Some are not. And at the end, it became the judge has to be like a Superman, like you have to be whatever, But many judges live in many countries. They never had to fight for their independence. They just work their job and it's all great. And then suddenly you come to the position where you have to decide whether you will lose everything what you have just to fight for the independence of the judiciary. And I want to defend many judges in my country and in other countries that are quiet. Let's call them quiet. But majority of them were just in their courtrooms. They were delivering their decisions. They were doing it right, civil rights, trade rights, criminal rights that are not very high profile cases. And that's like that, that's like that. But then you have this smaller percent, which is enough, like 10, 15, or 20% of judges that really serve the politics, and they put themselves on disposal for the positions, for the corruption, and it's not always, it's very rare, it's the money, directly the money. Like in Serbia, as I told you, that was corruption in getting apartments, in getting privileges, in getting children to get the prestige universities or whatever. So that was, I don't know, I wrote it all, you know, but somehow I get so emotional, then I don't read what I wrote, so I just speak. I hope that later I will have some more questions, but when we were dismissed, soon this revolution day came, that was the 5th of October of 2000, when again we had the presidential elections, when Milosevic was sure that he will win, but he didn't. He lost, but again he proclaimed that he won, and that is the moment when all the people really went on the street, and that was revolution on the street, like it was in Romania, if you saw it, and people were coming from all the cities, and also the judges were there. I remember all this gas I was getting in my face and being together with the students, holding them. And that is really important in all this. For us judges was the role of the students, university, and the role of the professors of the university. Because at that time we had the prominent professors that were dismissed from their universities. They were all dismissed during the regime of Slobodan Milosevic. But they didn't leave the country. They stayed, they made some NGOs, and they worked with the young people, and they worked with the students. And some professors, they went out on the streets, even the professors that were not dismissed, they were out on the streets with their students. And that was really a period that I remember with greatness in my heart. Even my children, I forbid them, they were like 13 or 14, I forbid them to go on the street, and I knew they will go, and they told me, okay, mommy, we will not go, but they went from the other side to the Belgrade, and I was proud of them, you know, that's something that it's like, I don't know, but it has to come from more, and universities are so important, students are so important. And it's so important also to have the contact with international community, to talk with them, so that they talk with you, to get some courage. We started getting support from international organizations, and that was it. And then after the 5th of October, when Slobodan Milosevic was done, we were building a new government, democracy, transition. We still were kept with organized crime. It's so hard to deal with organized crime that went to the all four of the state. It went to the secret police, which is the most important, secret police, state secret police, army secret police. So they were also connected. And now you have to make a demontage of all of it, which is very hard and slow process. It's not easy. It was not easy for our government neither, because now you have to communicate with some really dangerous people, because at that moment when we were on the streets, the big leader of the organized crime, and he was a special forces, belonged also to the state, he threatened them that they will go with the tanks on the street and start going over the people. So they had to talk with them, to tell them, okay, don't do it. We will see after that what we will do. So you have to do some compromises, and it's not easy, and it's always good material later for the opposition to say, oh yes, you cooperated with criminals at that day, you know, but we have to look at the wider scope. So when the new Ministry of Justice came, they opened the door to judges and said, okay, let's make reform, let's do what we have to do. So we were changing the laws, and judges were the members of commissions, different working groups, changing the law in courts. We made a High Judicial Council, that was the first time at that time. We are trying, and now completely we abolished the role of parliament in election of judges and dismissal of judges. It's all in the hands of High Judicial Council. And so we were changing the laws, we were changing the structure of the court, and there was a big issue of responsibility in all society. And that is something that we, I think, missed the opportunity to do. Because what to do with the judges who were involved? Some of them left by themselves, which is okay, that's great. Some of them who were really involved in crime, they were called and asked to leave, but still there were many of them left. And some of us were asking for the vetting procedure, for some kind of procedural dismissal of judges. And at that time, we didn't do it. Even that was the period when we only really had the clear proofs who did what. Decisions, these judges involved in steal of elections, what did they get? We knew exactly all of those data, but somehow that was not broadly done, just incidentally. When we made the new council or high judicial council, some judges were put to the retirement, some before 1 or 2 years before it was the time for retirement. That was kind of the way how to do it. And now if someone asks me what to do really, I think that was the moment when we were supposed to do this vetting of judiciary, but with the proofs, with the procedure. Even if you don't have, sometimes you cannot always dismiss everyone you know who did something bad. It's better to leave him than to dismiss him without procedure, without legality, because it then leads to the way that each government after you can do the same thing and can try to have their own judges. We had one reform in 2010 done under the Democrats, under the democratic political structure. And that was the most horrible reform because at that point they wanted to get rid of the judges who they thought were not doing a good job in the issues of war crime, because we were facing the problems with the war crime trials in our country. Then we had Hague. We delivered Slobodan Milosevic to the Hague. One judge decided that. And we had organized crime cases. So there were some judges who you could see that they were, with their decision, especially in the Supreme Court, they were trying to just to stop the values of those decisions. They were returning decisions that we made, and I was in organized crime chamber. They would return it for such and such reasons. And so that was this reform came, and they dismissed about 1,000 judges. That was kind of really too much. And they did it without really certain procedure. They did it without any proof that they can, fight against. They had some papers from the secret police or whatever, but they were never shown. There were just some rumors. Or they dismissed some judges because their wives were married for lawyers, which was crazy. I think they dismissed someone just on the level that they didn't like him or what. So they made a big revolution in judiciary at that time. And Constitutional Court in 2012 abolished all decisions of that dismissal, saying that they were not done under the fair procedure. And all those judges, and gave the order that all those judges had to be reinstalled in the judiciary again. So that's happened. And that somehow made the division among the judges, those dismissed one, cases that who stayed, who were not dismissed, and it still lasts. So I think that when you, in the transition period, you have the problems first with the experienced judges, with the knowledge. Because many of judges left judiciary even before Milosevic fall from the power, because they just wanted to earn some more money. They went with lawyers, advocates. So you need good education for the judges. And if you somehow go with this dismissal so deep, that's what's happening in Albania, so you don't have judges. They just don't have judges. It lasts about 4 years, this process of vetting led by European Union. So it's really, really sensitive issue. For me, the most important is responsibility of the president of the courts, because at that period of the regime, they are the most important. Judges of the highest court, Supreme Courts, Constitutional Court, when they have to act and they don't act. So that is something very, very delicate that you have to do. And I just want to say that Association of Judges remains, and we, through all this time, Association of Judges is not only one association now, but for a long time it was only one, but it's fighting against any government that comes. We were fighting those dismissals in 2010 done by the Democrats. The Association of Judges wrote appeal to the Constitutional Court, because we were fighting for the principle. Because if you install that system that you change the structure of the court, for example, what in Serbia judges are for life, but what they did in 2008, Democrat Party, they said, okay, we will change the structure of the court. We will now install 4 appeal courts that we didn't have. We will give jurisdiction to the new 4 appeal courts. We will change jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So they said we made completely new court net, and that is the reason to re-elect all the judges, although we are judges for the life by the Constitution. So they used this. It was wrong, of course. So we were fighting for the principle, because any government after that can come and say the same, change the name of the court, the structure, and okay, let's go again and elect new judges and dismiss judges that we don't like. So the strong judiciary needs the strong system, strong parliament, and needs the strong individuals like judicial council that we have. We elect our own members for the judicial council. They are majority. Judges are majority there. By the last constitutional changes, even the Minister of Justice is not in the judicial council. But they are not. This is not the guarantee that the judicial council will be independent. It really depends on the integrity of the judges that are there. And at the end, my experience is that it ends up always with the integrity of the individuals that are doing responsible job that they are doing. Carlos, I don't know how long did I speak? Carlos? Okay.
Yeah, I was muted, but thank you very much. Well, Radmila, it's been almost 50 minutes. You can. It's been very comprehensive. You can finish with one last thought, and then maybe we can ask you for additional, comments or questions. But finish whenever you want. I think it's been a very comprehensive talk.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I can show you the paper. You see, Carlos, paper I wrote, but I didn't read it anyway. I really
Excellent.
No, it's issue of, I don't know, it's issue of integrity, and somehow you have to mobilize people, mobilize judges. I was led by the feeling that I'm doing it for the youth of my country, and I feel I'm a patriot, and I think it has the patriotism. But I was accused that I was the enemy of the country, that I was a traitor. And, you know, they just make them do things so obvious. I don't know if the life of the judges are in danger in Venezuela, like I know that they are in the Guatemala, which is horrible. And I admire and all my devotion to the judges I've seen in Guatemala who do things, and some prosecutors, and they are scared that they will be picked up on the street and who knows what will happen to them. So this is, I don't know, when you fight for the independence of the judiciary at one part of the play of the world, you fight for the independence worldwide. And you never know, even in the big developed countries, in Europe are changes, in Hungary, in the European Union, Poland, big countries that are now, you know, under democratic shields. They have problems with the judiciary, with the executive. So it's disease that can infect anyone. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Radmila, for this excellent conference that you have shared with us. And I'm sure that the persons who are here with us today have many comments and questions. In fact, I have begun to receive some of them. But I would like to not only thank you, but to tell you that your story and your reflections were familiar. A time for us in Venezuela is not the same. We have big difference, and we were not a civil or international war, and with a country being disassembled at the same time. But some of the other stories, some of them sound very familiar. Now, I think I'd like to recover some of your main ideas in the case of Venezuela, because we know what the lack of independence of judges is, the lack of rule of law, and the lack of democracy. So our aim should be, knowing that, and with the experience that took place in countries like yours in Serbia, to begin thinking on what needs to be done to recover the rule of law, including the independence of the judiciary. As you have said, it's important to tackle the responsibility of judges, but at the same time, respecting the values, the principles, the human rights. Proper procedures have to be put in place. And I was glad to hear the decision of your constitutional court as well. But I was very much surprised when you began saying that the fight for the independence of judges is a permanent task, even during democracy. Also, I think it's very important what you said about the importance of a national association of judges, a kind of association of judges. It does not have to be one, but the right of judges to associate, to share values, to defend their values. Just to let you know that the association of judges is forbidden, it's prohibited by the Constitution expressly in Venezuela. So that's one of the norms of our Constitution that can be easily deemed to be unconventional. I mean, against basic international human rights law. But I'd like to also remember the importance of what you call the international network of of those who are working and fighting for the independence of judges, not only with local NGOs, but internationally. And the story you told about your first relations with the ICJ, the International Commission of Juries, and how they were supporting the fight for the independence of judges. So we have a pending task in Venezuela for the future when we recover full democracy, when we recover free and fair elections. Also, we have to set up a plan to reestablish a judiciary. Establish a judiciary that goes beyond dismissing judges. It has to be a plan from bottom up and from the top to down that experience like yours enlightens us. But it's more than dismissing judges. Include dismissing some judges, of course, but it goes beyond. And your last idea that the rule of law includes the independence of judges, but goes beyond. It goes to the political system to have a strong and vivid legislative power, an executive power subject to the laws and the Constitution and international norms. I think it's very important to see the judges in the big picture of the rule of law, in fact. Radmila, one of the participants is asking you if you know or you have any written papers or a conference that you can share with us. Maybe you were showing us that you wrote what you told us today. If you can share that, or let me know afterwards to share with the participants any written material to learn more about the Serbia experience in its democracy building.
Okay, I will. And if you go to the site Association of Judges of Serbia, then there's on English, there's also materials and things that is about that. But I will send you, Carlos, what I have.
Okay, no, excellent. There is one question thinking on our country. You were saying that some of your colleagues were before the democratic revolution started. Some of the judges were maybe, I don't know, when inherited from the communist or socialist years of Yugoslavia. The question is, how was the situation of those judges? Did they have a space to behave with some degree of independence, or once they decide against the will of the government, they were persecuted or arbitrarily dismissed? How did it come about that few judges were already inside the judiciary of Yugoslavia, afterwards of Serbia, and were able to ignite the revolution for democracy, counting with judges inside the government, inside the state of Serbia? That's very interesting for us to hear from you, Radmila.
Yes, you mean by this old Yugoslavia under the Tito? Yeah, I was, for example.
Yeah, the old Yugoslavia and the newborn Serbia.
Yes,
as well.
Yes, but for example, I will tell you from my experience, which is experience of many judges. I'm retired now for 1 year, but I was elected as a judge. I was employed in the court as a court assistant at 1980. That was the period when it was still Tito, Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. So I was in that big system. And I was also elected for judge in that system. And judges and judiciary work in that Yugoslav system that we had one party, but Yugoslavia, as you remember, was not under the Iron Curtain, that was not under the Soviet Union. We were kind of third world, pretty independent. And there were not problems in judiciary. Later, as a young judge, I looked through some files and I learned that there were few cases that you can call them political. Some poets who were talking against Tito, some, I don't know, some high trade crimes or whatever. But judiciary functioned, and we didn't feel any really pressure. I was never asked for anything, and not some judges complained. You know? And then when Yugoslavia fell down and civil war, we just were there. Nobody really was dismissing us in the new country of Serbia and Montenegro, then Serbia. So we just continued to work. But they did, at the beginning, they did dismiss some few judges on the level of, being members of some intellectual groups that were formed at that time, that they were some involved in politics. But that was at that time really, really rare, very rare cases. And they just let us do our things. But then with the regime of Slobodan Milosevic, it really started because he really involved the criminals. That was really dangerous. He wanted all the power, and the civil war and the war crimes. So they wanted to have judges. So they were not really dismissal from judges from the ex-Yugoslavia. And I was very insulted, going through everything. Once I went to ask for the Canada visa for the Canada, because I was invited from the Canadian judges to talk on their conference of all judges of Canada. And they refused me, and they said, oh, you were the judge during the regime of Slobodan Milosevic or whatever, or ex. And I said, what? And I said, okay, I don't want to go to your country, forget it, You don't deserve me to come there. And then I told it to my friends in Canada, then they said, oh, don't, please. Then they called the embassy, because sometimes it gets to such stupid bureaucracy, And as I said, judges are just, what did they imagine, when you look from the perspective of America or whatever, that now you kill all the judges and bring the new ones or dismiss. I mean, when I say kill, I mean you dismiss all the judges, and bring where do you find the new judges, Where do you find the educated? It's not so easy. Then you get stuck with the problem. And as I said before, judge really is not to be the superhero. He has just to serve the law, and the state has to provide the system, political system has to provide certainty to the judge. Yeah, I told you, Carlos, when I was in England once, with talking with the judges of England, there was a law judge, and we were telling him his story and that period, how we got divorced and whatever, stayed on the street. I was almost on the street. I was not so much money or anything, 2 kids. And he told us, I don't know if I would have a courage to do all of this, what you did, To fight for what,
Yeah.
And I started crying for the first time in my life because someone told me that, I was not even aware what are we going through. So,
right. But Radmila, it's very important that you show us your record of fighting for independence of judiciary and democracy. So your record was important at the end for the transition and for the new democracy in Serbia, that you have been one of those who have sacrificed their careers and life for fighting for the rule of law. So that I think is also important to remember. Since we have been already an hour, I would give you the opportunity to some final words to say goodbye, and I will invite you to let us know how was your experience as a judge during the recent democratic years in Serbia after all of this fight ended up with a new democratic system and you had the opportunity to be in the Supreme Court. What can you briefly tell us about your experience fighting for independence, for the independence of the judiciary during the democratic years that you served in the Supreme Court?
Yeah, as I told at the beginning, and Carlos mentioned, it's never-ending story, believe me. And me personally and some of my colleagues, we are not loved by any government that comes, because somehow we just show them what they are doing wrong. And it's I don't know, is it tradition or what, they all want really to have their president of the court. They think by the laws, they don't have the influence. The laws are perfect, constitution is now perfect, but somehow it happens, they find their people. And so we just object, and there's a lot of violation of presumption of innocence, of privacy. And our president of the state, he loves to go out, and talk about criminals groups that they kind of put in the jail, talks about what the punishment they will get, bring the proofs on the TVs, and we have to oppose that, So I go out and say on TV or interview that that's not the role of the president, that's forbidden. He's doing this and then that. He opposed to me on the news or whatever, saying, oh, he's from another party now and he's somehow, and anyway, that was the period that is waiting you after. I hope it will be soon. Transition period will be full of all those problems that you will have with the structure of police, of the secret police, of the crimes. You have to find the tough judges to do that, and that's what we did. I volunteered for the organized crime court. This criminal group was still alive and active. They killed our prime minister, democratic one, and I had to sign the paper that state is not responsible for my life, that they cannot protect me or whatever. So that was the hardest period when we had to reveal, and still not all things are revealed, because all those state security things are so deep in the society. Thank you, Carlos. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I was
I want
muted.
to thank you, of course.
This.
I'm sorry, Carlos. I want to thank you, all of you that listen, and I'm here, whatever and whenever there are some topics or advices, team. Okay.
Yeah, no, really, Radmila, we all really appreciate this. Your enlightenment, your story, your learnings, all that you have shared with us is very important because, as you know, Venezuela is going through shadow years of lack of independence of the judiciary, lack of rule of law, democracy, and all that comes with that, with the human rights violations. And we have to see and learn from successful experiences that have gone through all of this and start thinking what will be a sounding plan to rebuild the rule of law, at least in the area of the judiciary, of the judicial power. And your ideas, your reflections of today, I'm sure have been very useful for the professors, the lawyers, the scholars that are listening this, and we will put this record in the YouTube of Universitas and all the co-organizing institutions, including the academy, the university, so that maybe some judges, some prosecutors, can listen and have some learning from your experience and maybe get inspired. That's our wish and our hope for the future country. So we thank you very much for your time. I know it's getting already late in your country. It's noon here, but I hope to see you soon, Radmila. And thank you very much.
Thank you all, and all the best to you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Leave.